Welcome to Season 4 of Copy Room Conversations, Releasing Imperfection and Normalizing Joy. My intention in sharing these precious humans with you is to inspire you to let go, let down, and remember that joy is love without inhibition, and love without inhibition is joy. With joy, we will not only survive, we will remember what it is to thrive, and so will our kids. Big thanks to our sponsor, Dirt Path Publishing, a company dedicated to publishing works with social impact. They are also the publisher of my book, Nothing's Missing, released earlier this year. For more information about my book, visit NicoleLuciani.com. And for more information on Dirt Path Publishing, visit dirtpathpublishing.com. In the meantime, and always, welcome to the Copy Room. Catherine Baker. My heart warms up just at the sound of her name. If you knew Catherine, you'd know exactly what I mean. She smiles and lights up the room with her goodness. She's kind and sweet, thoughtful and smart, and when she talks with you, her energy and her eyes make you feel like you might be the most important person in the world. Catherine has seen heartache in recent years. While some might sour as a result, it seems she's allowed herself to become even more tender, more empathetic, more in love with the work of her heart than maybe she ever has been. Her resilience in our profession offers us inspiration to take the next step, and the next one, and the next one, because she believes in us. She makes room for our joy, and she believes in our kids, most of all. Were you in the very first cohort of Hollyhock?
So I was 16.
Oh,
so
16.
Maybe the third?
You were the
second or
third. Yeah. Okay, so you came into the Hollyhock Fellowship, and for our listeners, that's this extraordinary fellowship that the Center to Support Excellence in Teaching at Stanford University was able to put together, and I was lucky enough to be a part of that team. I was in the history group, but you were English, if I recall.
That's right.
That's right. Tell us a little bit about your experience in that fellowship. Don't sugarcoat it. Speak your truth.
No, I know. I want it all. I like to think back on it and say it came at the perfect time in my career.
Mm-hmm.
I was very hesitant. It wasn't until Hollyhock that I started taking some risks. I very much was, I didn't want to step outside the box. And I think that comes with a fear of failure. But a buddy of mine, Savannah Wyndham, she was like, we should really apply for this. So we did it. We got in. We were super stoked. But being there, it changed my life personally, but also like the trajectory of my career. So it
Wow.
tapped me into like lifelong friends that I have that I still hang out with and talk to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So just having like a professional community that's not super local has been a beautiful thing.
Oh.
And it was at a point in my career where I was pretty established. I think it was year 4 or 5, but I was being faced with tremendous leadership responsibilities that I didn't quite know how to deal with, but
Mm-hmm.
that through the fellowship and the Leading Fellows program really helped so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was great. I mean, just in terms of like best practices, friends, community, joy filling, something just to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Yeah. It really was such a special thing to be a part of. I totally agree on the other side as well. I don't know why schools do this crazy thing that just when you can start to breathe as a teacher, you now become a leader with no preparation. Was that your
Correct.
experience?
1,000%. And I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
it more and more. It's happening with first year teachers, second year teachers.
Oh
They're
my God.
being, I don't want to say burdened with, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be
Yeah.
with enormous responsibility. And I'm like, you're doing what? Like it isn't this your like first or second year? Like,
Yeah.
how are you doing with that? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. And you go into survival mode, right? And then, like you
Mhm.
said, you don't want to step out of the box because you can barely breathe as it is. And now you want me to take a risk? Like, have you lost your damn mind?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, because I'm curious first of all, I want to hear how you came to the work of teaching, because I think everybody
Yeah.
comes kind of with their unique lens.
Hmm.
And then I want to hear you talk about, because when you started with Hollyhock, you were in high school. And
That's right.
then for a minute, you went to elementary.
Hmm.
And now
That's
you're
right.
back. So
That's it.
take us all the way back to kind of your experience in school and then all the way to today.
Sure. And this is like going to be like, I think, a continuing theme throughout our conversation is like the idea of rejection, failure, expectations, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to college at East Carolina University, and I knew I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be just like my mom.
Mm.
But more than that, I knew that I wanted to do work of the heart, so
Mm-hmm.
something that tangibly leaves an impact and that leaves the world a little bit better, at least than how I've found it.
Yeah.
And so I was in nursing school, and I had never failed a class, ever. Like, like C's, I would like get so emotional about C's. And I was in this, and I came from a very rural, tiny high school, and I'm thrust into, classes that are 500 people large, and
Mm.
I was failing several classes that were for my nursing major.
Wow.
And that scared me to death, right? So I'm questioning everything. Like, am I worthy of being here? What am
Mm.
I doing with my life? Like, why did I make this choice? And I dropped a lot of the classes. I took a
Mm-hmm.
big step back in terms of the rigor of the course load. And I was talking to my friend Eddie, and he is this phenomenal math educator.
Mm.
He was a couple years older than me, and he was like, "Kat, don't you want to like? I think you'd be a really good teacher." I was like, "No, I would not." He was like, "No, think about it. You really would be," and
Mm-hmm.
started like listing off all these things, and it was like hard to hear nice things being said about me. But I was like,
Mm.
you know what? He's kind of right. Like this could be cool. So he's like, just take a few. You're in this like, I call it my year of exploration. So I was taking like a
Mm.
ton of women's studies courses.
Love
He was
that.
like, when you're making your schedule, like just take some of like the education college prereqs. And I loved them. So I was like, okay,
Mm.
like I could see this. Like this is kind of cool. And then I got to student teaching, and it just felt so natural. I loved it. And that's how I came to teaching. Definitely was
Mm.
nothing I ever, dreamed of doing. I didn't like, you know, play school or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's how I landed at Northern Durham, and I fell in love with the department there. So I was there for
Mm-hmm.
7 years, and this is like right at the end of my time at Stanford.
Okay.
So this was a year after my leading fellows program, and it's weird because I feel like there's like this slow shift in like the way educators were being treated, the expectations that were starting to be put upon us. Like right before the pandemic, like I think everybody was almost like at a breaking point of
Mm-hmm.
I'm being asked too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that particular year, I was department chair, so a lot of the times I put myself last in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what courses I wanted to teach. So I mean, I was all over the place that year. I had 6 different preps.
Oh,
I didn't teach
Jesus.
the same thing twice. And I was teaching a credit recovery course.
Mm-hmm.
And there were kids in there from all across the board, like all different ages. And they wanted us to basically sit them down on a computer and like do computer gained credits.
Mm.
And it just felt so grimy. Like I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how else to put it. Like there was no like I built relationships with them, but that wasn't what was intended. And it ended up
Mm-hmm.
being one of the favorite classes like I ever taught. But I
Mm.
was just like talking to these kids. It's like, how did you get to be like taking this course for the fourth time? English
Mm-hmm.
one for the fourth time, and you're 18. And what
Mm-hmm.
I found was is like the system of education had just failed these kids in so many ways, and certain educators had really made these kids feel like they didn't belong in schools.
Mm.
So I did a little soul searching, and I was like, well, what if I did fifth grade or sixth grade, like younger kids,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe made them fall, because I wanted to get like kind of an at risk or gateway type of demographic.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, well, what if I went to like fifth or sixth grade and just brought tons of joy, excitement back into the classroom, and maybe change how
Mm-hmm.
they perceive schooling for the next few years? Like that could be powerful. So I did, and it was a really cool journey. It
Wow.
was. But elementary school, that's a whole nother story. In terms of what's expected, how you're treated, expectations, all that. And so I left my fifth grade classroom in December and said, well, what is my life missing right now? And it was the relationships, the excitement, the highs and lows of high school. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
at a really, really cool school right now. And
Mm.
honestly, probably my favorite place I've ever worked.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It is. It's really cool. And I tell them that. I tell them that every day. I'm like, man, y'all make me really love like waking up super early and driving kind of far to come and work
Mm-hmm.
with you. So
Mm.
it's been cool.
What did you learn about learning when
Hmm.
you were with the younger kids?
Oh man, one, they're all over the place. I mean, I think that's the same in high school as well. But I mean, they're coming with like such incredible like gaps in knowledge. So it's like figuring out a way to break down really complicated things and make it accessible for everybody. And they all come to the table with just different experiences. So you have to figure out like motivation in a way, which and it's the same in high school, but it's different for they're younger, like they're tinier. So things where like a relationship, like strong relationship building worked in high school, it took like really creative ways when they're younger. Like they're very like
Mm.
extrinsically motivated. Like that water bottle sticker, I really want to work for that.
Mm.
So I'm gonna like try really hard for that sticker. Or like I had this like table that I built and I would like draw things for them to color in. And so they
Mm-hmm.
would be like, okay, so I'm gonna try really hard for that thing. So it's like finding ways to motivate them and then also figuring out a way to differentiate that because there's like a whole I mean, I think in fifth grade I had a kid. He was reading at a first grade reading level, so it was like tons of
Mm.
phonics work with him. And by the end of
Mm-hmm.
the year, it was actually the year that we were virtual. He was on a fifth grade level, which was really
Wow.
cool for him. Yeah, he worked really just incredibly hard, and I think that he was a kid that a lot of people had overlooked because he was so
Mm.
quiet and shy. But just like putting in that time and building that confidence within him
Yeah,
made a big difference.
that's so beautiful.
It was.
It makes me wonder, like maybe that's the whole that boy was the whole reason you went to fifth grade. That could be.
For sure. Yeah.
That's really
Yep.
lovely. I love that.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about why you left in December as opposed to continuing the year?
Oh, I'm completely comfortable. I don't think I was at the time, but I think I definitely am now. Okay, so I did 2 years at a Title I school, and
Mm-hmm.
then I changed to a year-round school. And a lot of this is around my personal mental health. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
be super real. So I was in the
Please.
past year I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder,
Okay.
and I wasn't quite sure how to name at the time certain uh, I don't know, moods that I would get in. And people that
Mm-hmm.
worked with me for a long time, they distinctly knew. Like Savannah would know October, March is not good for Catherine. Like these are just
Oh.
really dark times for her. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was really blessed to have people that knew me really well to like step in and support me in those like really like times I was like pulling away.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe year round would like align better with these periods
Mm.
where I'm like, it's really hard to get out of bed this morning. It's really hard to function today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in, and it was tough because I had 2 weeks of summer,
Mm-hmm.
started a brand new job at a brand new school. Now this was not a Title I school. This is a magnet school. It was touted as being the best elementary school in Durham,
Mm-hmm.
and incredible principal. First week there, he announces he's retiring.
Oh shit.
And so a lot of the reasons that attracted me to that school were then taken away.
Mm.
We also had like a lot of like personal stuff going on in our life, like our house flooded. So it was like chaotic life things that were going on as I'm trying to
Yeah.
establish myself in this new place.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt really isolated and alone, like I didn't have a lot of support
Mm-hmm.
at this new place. And one of the most important things to them was testing.
Mm.
Was these students we are a blue ribbon award winning school. We need to be this year. This is our great comeback. And so that's their mindset. It's not how do we welcome these kids back into school that haven't been in school since they were in third grade?
Right. My
How do we
God.
teach them how do we make space for them to make friends?
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring in kids who have been terrified to be in public, back in a classroom that's packed full?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like a conflicting thing for me because
Mm.
my work is established. I mean, the foundation, the bread and butter is relationships.
Right.
To then be told, well, your test scores better be what we expect them to be. This is what you're projected to get.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it needs to be. And then
Wow.
also just some feelings of I felt like there were times when I was being called out for things where other teammates of mine weren't.
Mm.
There was a kid. Well, there was two separate incidences really close together where altercation turned physical. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I had all these things in place, but there are certain things that are out of our control. We can't like jump into a kid's body and make it not happen.
Totally, totally.
And I was sat down for a conversation about my classroom management and was my classroom a safe space for those students?
What?
And it felt like just such a if man, it just felt like such a I don't know, betrayal, or it just made me feel like all the really hard work that I had done did not matter at all. That was
Yeah.
their impression of me, my teaching, and it turned out my scores were really great when I left in December, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
public apology issued from the curriculum coach that didn't think I would be able to hit that goal.
Wow.
So I think there were some Title I prejudices going on there.
Mm.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody. That was, I can just speak my experience and the way
Of
that I
course.
felt.
Of course.
Um, and so it was definitely like I don't feel this doesn't feel good anymore.
Right.
This doesn't feel like, and it was so tough because man, those kids were incredible. The most
Mm.
fantastic group of kids and parents. The parents are just so supportive of
Mm-hmm.
me, anything that I needed, anything that my kids needed, and didn't care about me just as a teacher, but as a person too.
Mm.
The day my house flooded, I had a parent show up with coffee, towels, and they're like,
Wow.
"What do you need? Can I do anything?" And I was like, "Man, that's community, you
I
know."
love
So that
that.
was such a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, it was really cool. So that's kind of what led up to it. It was not only like these extreme pressures, but I think a compromising of my I felt like I was compromising my teacher values in a way. Our
Of
values
course.
just did not align. Not that
Mm-hmm.
there's anything wrong with that school or that
Mm-hmm.
administration. It's a beautiful place, but it just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and when you are grappling with your mental health,
Yeah.
you've got to make tough choices sometimes. And the
Mhm.
best thing that we can give our kids is a healthy us,
Mhm.
right? There is no value in us stripping ourselves bare to be the martyr or wear that like superhero trope. It's just
Yeah.
total horseshit, right? If we're not healthy, our
It
kids will not
is.
be healthy. Yeah.
And they're not. And I think that we have all experienced educators like that. Either we've been taught by them or we have worked with them and we're just like, this isn't healthy for you and it's not serving our kids.
Right.
Like take care of you. As a department chair, that was always like my first thing is like, you do whatever you need to do because if you're
Mm-hmm.
not okay, then you can't be okay to come in here and do this work every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's been a journey of you learning that lesson for yourself, it sounds like, as well.
1,000%. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would, I've had to learn how to put up boundaries that are healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, she's a kindergarten teacher. She's had to learn the same thing
Mm.
over the past 10 years. I've seen such a massive shift in her and like how much better her outlook is than maybe it was
Mm.
a few years ago. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a lesson to be learned, and it's a hard one
Yeah.
because we do feel there are impossible expectations that are set upon us sometimes.
100. Yeah, absolutely. And how lovely that your wife is also a teacher, probably
Mhm.
similarly warm hearted as you, I would
Oh
imagine.
man,
I hope nothing less.
yeah, her nickname is literally Bubbly. So if that says
Mm.
anything, she's in the
Mm-hmm.
right place.
Yeah. Well, and to be able to come home and put your burdens down with someone who truly does understand what it is that you're
Yes.
dealing with
Yep.
and celebrate with you that true someone who really truly understands how
Hmm.
extraordinary something is. That's really lovely.
Yeah.
So tell me, as teachers, we're all learners. I think that every kid and their family member is going to teach us something, especially the ones we wish were absent.
Hmm.
Um, I'm wondering, as you look back, obviously boundaries is something you've had to learn. Obviously, taking care of
Yeah.
yourself and positioning yourself as just as important is something you've had to learn. Is there anything in particular that comes to mind as something you've learned from a student or their family that maybe was a pretty tough lesson?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I think back especially to my first couple of years at Northern. I would have, there was just some extreme like abusive behaviors from students. Like they cuss you
Mm,
out, they would make it personal comments about you. And I'm very tenderhearted. And that
mm,
man, that would eat me up those first couple of years. I'd be like, damn, like
mm,
I didn't deserve that. And so I
mm-hmm,
really had to take a step back and like through building a relationship with those kids,
mm,
it's not about us. You
mm-hmm.
know, everybody is bringing the multitudes of what has gone on in their life. And oftentimes we project that onto other people. We lash out at other people. And what I found out was a lot of the times those kids were lashing out at me because it was a safe place to lash out.
Of course.
Because they
Mm-hmm.
knew the next day it was going to be, hey, how are you? Like it. So I think that, we just have to remember that we're all a sum of our experiences.
Mm,
And a lot of the times how other people treat us is it is not a reflection of who we are, but
right.
it's a reflection of like what other people are going through at that particular time.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful.
It's made all the difference.
Hasn't it? Because you can just kind of take a pause and
Hmm.
recognize this is not about me right now.
Yeah.
And hold a boundary because kids need
Mhm.
boundaries, of course. And also they need grace, right? They need both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about schools like a puzzle, right? And if we're going to have a healthy school, everybody has a particular piece that they put down. And when everybody
Hmm.
puts their pieces down, then we've got a whole, right? And I
Yeah.
think about you and your level of authenticity and your level of care. I wonder, is that your puzzle piece that you put down on the table? Is there something else?
No, I would agree with that completely. And just wanting to understand people for who they are.
Mm,
And I think that, that's how communities come together. It is through authenticity. It's seeing a person for who they are, for the beautiful gifts that they offer,
mm,
and listening.
mm,
And I think that a lot of change can't take place because we're too busy arguing or
mm,
assuming what the other person means. But the first piece has to be caring about the human being that's across from you, whether it be your student, whether it be administrators, parents, change makers in the community, your board members.
mm-hmm.
And I think that the schools that I've worked in where people desire to know who you are and respect that and truly care about your concerns and um, things that you want to happen, those have been the best places to work. I
Mm.
think, and it's really important. And there's really only one person I've ever worked for that has consistently been able to do that for their school community. I've worked for him twice. So
Mm.
he was my principal at Northern and then again at Merrickmore.
Is that where you are now?
I'm not.
No.
So I would have tried to get in. Shout out to Mr. Matt Hunt. He's
Uh-huh.
incredible. He's a great leader. But I'm at Apex Friendship under Matt White, and from the first conversation with this man and his entire administrative staff, warm. They
Mm.
listen. They're
Mm-hmm.
supportive, and they truly treat us like professionals.
Mm.
Um, and want us to do the job of teaching, and
Wow.
it's a beautiful thing.
That's such a gift. That should
It
be the
is.
norm,
Yeah.
and it's not. So we have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that it is a gift for sure. This season is dedicated to normalizing joy. And when I
Mhm.
thought, who do I want to be on this season? I thought back to Hollyhock, and it wasn't even that you were like out there leading the cheers, right? You just
Mhm.
were this bright light of humanity that you weren't even in my cohort or in my content area. And it emanated from you. Every time you walk through those doors at LKS, I was like, oh, Catherine's here. It's just this really quiet, loving, warm joy that comes out of your pores. And so I want to explore that with you. I wonder
Sure.
if that's something that's just part of your disposition. I wonder if you've had to battle back perfectionism and if joy has helped you do that. Can you kind of take me through any experiences you have it for yourself and or for helping students through this kind of should perfect
Hmm.
thing, and then how maybe joy's helped you get through that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I've talked about like the fear of failure. Perfectionism has never really been a struggle for me personally, but I've seen it in students time and time again. And what I always ask them is, did you try your best? Did you give everything in your person to whatever task you wanted to do? And if the answer is
Mm-hmm.
yes, then that is not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is the best lesson to us. It creates tenacity and grit within us, and maybe lets us know things that aren't right for us versus what we
Mm.
think is right and what is. I think back to what would life be like if I was a nurse versus a teacher. I can't
Mm.
say that my life would be as joyful if I wasn't an
Mm.
educator. I think that just how I am as a person is like I think I have a deep down desire to be loved, so I
Mm.
give love freely.
Mm.
um I think that I struggled a lot when I was younger, with not feeling authentically loved for who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever want anybody to feel like that. That's such an easy thing to give. Some days more than others. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that I'm the most loving every single day,
Of course.
but that's an easy, free thing that we can give. That really, I mean, I've never once regretted giving that part of myself to other people because it
Mm-hmm.
has always been something that they appreciate. I mean, even the kid I've been at this current school for about 2 months, and they already are just like, you like your mama bear, like, we
Mm-hmm.
like you truly like listen to us, like we can tell that you love and care about us, and like that's like it's very different, and we appreciate you for that.
Mm-hmm. It carries some very serious vulnerability to be that way, to be
Hmm.
that open hearted,
Yeah.
especially for someone like yourself who you said felt like you weren't always loved for who you really were.
Hmm.
What gave you that courage
Yeah.
to just say, I'm gonna give this love because this is what I need and I know it comes with risks? What
Yeah.
gives you that courage?
I think that um it gives you an understanding of who you can and cannot trust, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So if you
Mm-hmm.
are just authentically yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you can make a determination of, because people are going to react to you one way or the other. They're going to accept you or they're not. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
almost rather like from jump know who was going to be receptive and open to me,
Mm-hmm.
than have that paranoia or like fear of rejection in the back of my
Mm.
mind. So sometimes when you lead with that, it's almost like, well, you can either accept me or not, but it's not going to hurt me.
Right.
It's not going
Right.
to, you can't be disappointed because I'm like, hey, I've given you the best of me.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not good enough for you, then that's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And you do know right away because you're not holding
Hmm.
anything back.
Yeah.
If you can trust someone, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
trying to front and then do they like
Yeah.
you because of the front or do they, it's confusing. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah. Having a mask on all the time is just literally exhausting. And I
Yeah.
felt like, it wasn't something that was, it's something that I had to almost perfect a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it started in college. It definitely like I was a lot more guarded during student teaching because there's still a grade attached to it.
Sure.
I think I was very like tentative my first year, but by the second year of teaching, I was like, this is just how I want to be. This is
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be fake. And kids are such a good. They can detect bullshit. Like you're not being
Totally.
real. You are so fake. I literally don't care. They want authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can give you that.
Mm-hmm. 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 Do you feel like you liberating yourself in turn liberates the students to be themselves?
Yes, I mean, like 100%. Not every kid is going to open up, but I just think about, like we're just having regular conversations. Like they're doing some work and they'll be talking, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I will insert myself. I'm like a shameless insert. They know this. Um, but some of like, I'm like, what you say? What are y'all listening to? What you watching?
I love that.
But some of like the best, like most vulnerable conversations happen because of that. Like the other day, I really don't even know how it started, but like kids were just talking about their parents and their relationships with their parents, and some of them were like, it's really great, and others were like, I just don't feel like they quite understand me. And I was like, oh, me
Mm,
too. Like I felt like that
mm,
growing up so much. And it's
mm-hmm,
just feeling like they have like a kindred spirit in the world, someone that's
mm,
can relate to something that they're going through. I think it's really important.
mm-hmm.
Because I think our kids do feel really alone a lot of the times because they don't
Yeah,
quite know who they are yet, and they are afraid of if they show who they really are, what if somebody doesn't, accept me or want to be around me?
yeah, yeah. And that kind of brings us back to the beginning of the conversation when you said the themes of rejection and
Hmm.
love and seeking love. I wonder if your approach, because everything about you feels to me like you're delighted by others.
Hmm.
You're curious. You're you want to know, like, tell me all the things, right?
Hmm.
And you just create this space where people feel seen by you. And we've talked in this season with some other guests about what joy looks like, right?
Hmm.
And it can be loud and funny and joke telling, but it can also be just the pure joy of feeling seen by my teacher and
Hmm.
being
Yeah.
allowed to be who I am.
Hmm.
But you do that with adults too. I mean, I watched it in Hollyhock for those 2 weeks every summer. I just watched you carry on and create space for people. So is that a
Yeah.
real intentional thing that you do?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I guess like I wouldn't not do I wouldn't stop doing that. So I guess in that way it is intentional. But I think your read of me is very accurate, and I love other people. I love
Mm,
connection. I love meeting new people. I don't do very well by myself. And it's
mm,
funny because I call myself an introverted extrovert.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So it's like I do force myself, to maybe carry on conversations, whereas inside I'm like, oh, like I'm so anxious right now. Like I have a lot of anxiety about this. Let me just go maybe talk to this person. It won't be that
mm-hmm,
bad. And that's
mm-hmm,
exactly like how I met Lee Peterson or Lee Pichon
mm-hmm.
from New Orleans. It was just I was feeling like really awkward. It was like at our first like here's 200 people, get to know them.
Oh God, yeah.
And I saw New Orleans on her name tag, and I was like, all right, my friend Devin, her husband's from New Orleans. Their dog is named Nola. Go talk to them. And then I
That's
ended up
amazing.
meeting, and yeah, and so and then I sat down with her and Chris and a few other people, and it was just, oh, cool. Like these are my people. We have a lot in
Mm-hmm,
common. This is a nice feeling, you know.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Then gives you that courage to do the next time.
do it again. Yeah, to
Yeah.
do it again. Do it
Mm-hmm.
again. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Chris was on the podcast. I don't know if you had a chance to hear it yet, but if you haven't, you should because he's on with his mom, and it's
Yeah,
just
I
the
saw the
greatest
episode.
conversation.
I think
It's a
it's so
great,
cool.
yeah.
They're very inspirational. Like I love that because I was definitely influenced by like how I wanted to lead my life through my mom. But I just
Mm-hmm.
love seeing like he'll go see her students and vice versa. It's
Yeah,
just so cool. Such
it's
a cool
so
thing.
cool. I know,
Yeah.
I know. I love it. So, when you think about how we can start to normalize joy in our
Hmm.
classrooms, we've already established it can look a lot of different ways. How would you advise someone that maybe is nervous to be authentic or maybe is kind of more serious in disposition? What small things can we do to bring class joy into our classroom?
Well, just think about the parts of yourself that you are okay sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like I gave the example of like knowing that my friend had a dog named Nola, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not high risk. That's not a high risk piece of information to give out to myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to create like routines or rituals in your classroom, something that they can expect.
Yeah.
At Northern, it would be like good things, or I always had music playing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was teaching elementary school, we always had a 30-minute morning meeting. It was like the best part of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But just think about what are little parts of me that I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel scared to share,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to share back. and then you slowly start to feel safe, or when you're given those cues of like, okay, it's safe for me to share this about me. Being an
Mm-hmm.
openly gay educator is like really scary sometimes. And I
Mm-hmm.
usually try, and switching to elementary school, that was a really hard thing to. I look how I look. People like to judge based on the way that you look and make
Mm-hmm.
assumptions about your life. But I mean, I was very open with my students, and I think that was probably the scariest thing for me.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, are these kids gonna, just like shut me out completely? But
Mm.
and I'm not gonna say that every student was like okay with that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't regret it because I had other students that had gay parents or family
Yeah.
members or siblings, and they were like, I've never met another person like this person in my family. And so
Mm.
that was really really nice because I know that I would have appreciated that growing up.
Well, I was just going to say, can you imagine how different your outlook would have been
Hmm.
had you had a teacher that you could go, "Oh, they're like me."
Hmm.
And you probably did, but they were closeted, right? So
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
don't even know.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's really helpful. Kind of, and just like, yeah, like you said with the dog and the name of the dog, small steps toward greater authenticity
Hmm.
will allow a greater joy in our
Yeah.
classrooms.
And make that part of your daily routine. Maybe it's I mean, bring something that you like genuinely love. Like if it's music, like say, "Hey,
Mm,
this is a song I want to share with you today. What do you think of it? What's
mm,
something that you're listening to right now?" Like, I mean, I love TikTok. Like
mm-hmm,
I'll see like a funny video or something and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, y'all, I had to show you this because
mm-hmm,
it made me think about so and so." And they're like, "Oh, that's so funny." Just
mm-hmm.
moments where you feel a little bit more open and vulnerable. And most kids will match that.
Totally, totally. And if they don't, as you said
Hmm.
earlier, that's a them problem. That's not a you
Yeah,
problem. Yeah,
absolutely.
great. So, do you, when you think about these last two songs, we ask everybody, we have a
I
playlist.
love it.
Now, many introverts I've interviewed say, no, I don't have a song. I don't have a walk up
Yeah,
song. I don't have a theme song. I just like quiet. Then there are others who are like, immediately, I'm going to tell you the song that's like my hype song. So, do you have one?
I have two
Great.
that I rotate between. One is Sissy That Walk by RuPaul.
Mm-hmm.
That will bring out your inner supermodel of the world. Nobody can tell you anything
Yeah.
if you listen to that on your way into work. Don't listen to it on the scooter. And then Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks. I can just
Mm,
do spins down the hallway and I'm amped up, ready to go for the day.
I love it. I love that. So the name of the podcast is called Copy Room Conversations because
Mhm.
for me, the most formative conversations I had were around the copy machine, right?
For sure.
And
Yeah.
the thing that I miss, the absolute thing I miss most, and I say this unapologetically about not being at a school, is the copy room before school starts. When there's
Yeah.
this buzz and there's this team feeling and we're going to get out it and go have a great day. So,
Yeah.
if we were in the copy room together before school and you were headed out, what would you tell me? What little piece of advice would you remind me or quick tip would you offer?
Yeah, that takes me back to the copy room at Northern. We finally got one on our hall, and so we would all be crammed in this tiny little room, frantically making copies or like, "Hey, like, you gonna take a long time? Can you do mine?" And like write them down.
Yeah.
It was always like that. Well, the first thing, I kind of was trying to like anticipate some things.
Mhm.
But one is just like make sure that you start your day with something that is going to make everybody smile. So whether
Mm.
it is like having music on when you come to the classroom or a lot of times I'd start the day when I was teaching elementary school with like a read aloud, like something that could be funny or like
Mhm.
heartwarming or just apart from a book that I think that they would like. That was always like really great. And good things. Like I did an okay job with it. I know that Savannah Wyndham, who was a coworker of mine and was also part of the fellowship, she did a great job with good things. Like that was her thing.
Mm.
And so a lot of the times I would actually go in during my planning to watch her and her students do this like morning, routine because it was like just so joy filled and starts the day off right. It's not
Yeah.
just, I think we, a lot of the times as teachers, we sometimes get caught up in like it has to be all content all day.
Yeah.
But that's just, nobody learns that way.
Mm-mm.
And nobody feels vulnerable truly learning that way unless, I don't know, at least a part of their humanity is recognized and not treated just like another number or little
Yeah.
robot, you know?
Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you're saying. It's been so lovely to have you, Catherine.
Thank
I'm
you. I
so
really
grateful
appreciate
that you
it.
said yes and that you were willing to share yourself with us. It's been a lovely hour that we've spent together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your time with us in the copy room. Whether you're on your way to school, on your way home, walking your dog, or doing your household chores, I wish you a day of letting down and letting go. Remembering your birthright is to operate from a place of joy, even if your heart's broken. Perhaps especially when your heart's broken. Thank you to Dirt Path Publishing for producing this podcast, and to you for listening.